Welcome to the Underground Warriors podcast, where we explore human potential and learn from everyday heroes who have risen to life's challenges, conquered their fear, and are impacting the world in positive ways. I'm your host, Jon Christian. Hello, and welcome back to the Underground Warriors podcast, where we dive into the minds of extraordinary individuals who push limits of human potential. I'm Jon Christian, and today I have a guest who is literally harnessing the power of lightning to create something truly amazing. Michael Ravenwood is the owner of creative director of empowerment and empowerment coach of Skyfire Arts, a groundbreaking performance arts company where performers dance with massive arcs of lightning from giant Tesla coils. He's not just an artist, he's a storyteller, martial artist, empowerment coach, and educator dedicated to using performance to inspire conscious energy using personal transformation. With over 20 years of flow art and meditation experience, psychology, emerging fire, storytelling, and empowerment, Michael is here to share his journey of discipline, creativity, and pushing human limits. So, welcome, Michael, to the Underground Warriors podcast. Excited to go dive deep into your story and your journey. Anybody that's gone down this path has got to have a pretty interesting spark of inspiration. So, let's dive in.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. And wow, that was a great introduction. I feel honored. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So your work is pretty mind blowing, and most people never even get to want to get near high voltage or electricity, let alone dancing with it. So how did this journey really begin for you,
Yeah.
as the story unfolded?
Yeah. So it was a pretty profound synchronicity or meaningful coincidence. So I was a fire dancer for a couple of years at the point when I started to have this kind of epiphany. I was like, wow, I really love dancing with fire. The roar, the flame, and the light and the shadow. So beautiful. What would it be like, I thought, to dance with electricity? It's another primal energy, thrilling, a little bit dangerous, what would that be like? And 2 weeks later, I'm standing in line at Starbucks, and the guy standing next to me starts talking to the woman over the counter about his lightning project. And I just thought to myself, what? This is too weird. I listen, and I was like, I can't pass this opportunity. So I turned to him, excuse me, I don't mean to eavesdrop on your conversation, but I can't help myself. And I tell my story. And he looks at me, he's like, that is really weird that you would think those thoughts and run into me, because not only do I build some of the largest Tesla coils in the world, later I find out he is teslacoil.com, right? And he says, I have designed a high voltage protective suit in which you can effectively dance with lightning. Now, I have to be transparent at this point. My big fat idea was to take stun guns, tape them to the end of a stick, strap their buttons down so they just keep firing, and and have a kind of a flow art with a little bit of electricity. And that would have been about 2 inches of electricity, right? He's talking like 15-foot long arcs. And I even went so far as to buy some stun guns and zap myself in the arm to make sure, okay, if I'm going to ask other performers to be around or to do this with me, I don't want them to get hurt. I need to know how bad it's going to hurt. And it hurt really bad, but I was like, okay, goggles and a groin cup. If I have goggles and a groin cup, I should be okay to do this act, But then this guy comes with this way more amazing and spectacular idea. So I'm like, can I get your number? And the rest is history, as I say.
That's amazing. I think one of the things that you and I resonate with is using natural forces as like a teacher, a way to tap into who we are and our power, right? So it's all about, for me, it's surfing, being in the water and feeling the power of the ocean. Um,
Mhm.
it sounds like that fire element was a draw for you as well, so drawn to that. And it reminds us of what we're truly, who we are truly inside, which is very powerful, divine being. So it's almost like dancing with ourselves in a certain extent, So
Yeah.
looking at that a little bit deeper, some of the lessons that you've learned or connected for yourself, and then also how that translate into empowering others. You're starting to get into the role of, a guide, a mentor, coaching others to get connected with themselves or play with that power. So how's that evolution been and connected?
Yeah, thank you for opening that up. A couple things immediately spring to mind. I have been teaching, for about 15 years. I started about 20 so years ago. I started teaching, flow arts as a path to personal realization and fulfillment. Because years before that, I got my degree in psychology and began my sort of personal growth journey, or continued it, I should say. And I definitely feel like the primal elements have several things specifically to offer this, journey that we have towards knowing ourselves better and living our fullest life. One is that, I've studied Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler's work on flow states, and, danger or some sort of consequence is, one of the things that helps drive people into flow states. And there is no more primal kind of fear that a lot of people can experience than having a flame close to them. Like, that is a really powerful, like, okay, I need to, stay away. It's war. You can feel it from a distance. It's bright. It has a very ancient relationship with us. Like, we know that it's dangerous way down deep inside. And so when we get near it, and then when we get to later learn to have fun while we're dancing with it, there's a whole thing about transcending our fear of it and coming to a place where we can actually enjoy it. And it really is a mirror for life. Like, when we get over our fear of death is when we really can start living as thoroughly and deeply as we possibly can. So I think the danger of fire and our primal or primordial connection to it is very much a powerful driver for the learning that we can experience through it, and the transformation we can have. And also, specifically more with lightning, the understanding of how it works in a certain fashion and how we are conducting the energy. We're not like creating that energy, right? And one of the, greatest lessons that I like to share in my, workshops and my coaching is all about how really all of this is a gift. Like, we didn't choose this body. It was just a gift. We just woke up in this body, and eventually we learn how to use it more and more consciously, right? And we learn that we don't actually choose our preferences either. Like, we put like Rocky Road ice cream in your mouth, right? And whether you like it or not is not really up to you. You either love it, some people love it, or you don't. You don't really get to choose what you really, really love. And some people like red, some people like blue. They don't get to choose what they like, but they do get to choose whether or not they're paying attention to what they love, and whether or not they're choosing to bring more of what they love into their lives. And in some cases, whether to just kind of like steer away from certain things, or recognize, "Oh, okay, I don't really love that, but it's a very necessary part of my life. I actually need to focus on it, get better at that, so I can create more balance and harmony in my capacity in my life." And so there's this whole understanding of, okay, I love to do certain things. How do I take my love for those things, which gives me free energy, and create something that's of value to others, and then learn how to sell that, learn how to communicate its value to other people so that they feel happy to give you money and pay for your lifestyle. And so then there's this, what I call the completion of the human energy circuit. And then later I learned the Japanese term ikigai, which is even a more sort of clear explanation of that. In France, it would be called raison d'être, like everybody has this understanding in all cultures around like the purpose, the essence of our purpose and how important that is. And so the metaphor of lightning is about, okay, I'm channeling this energy. I don't necessarily get to create or choose this energy, but I do get to choose whether I connect to it and then create value for others so that I can be sustained and basically play for the rest of my life. And so that's a big lesson that I like to share. It's a good metaphor that electricity works for.
Yeah, there's so many good little gold nuggets in there that we could pick apart. One of the things that I resonate with, that you said, is the idea of, and this is a lot of the foundation of the Zerkers challenges and things that I've done personally over the years, is the idea of dancing with fear. So I'd grown up, very self conscious, um, you know, eh, and what I did was I used adventure, like things like skydiving, bungee jumping, endurance races, things like that, to build up fear resilience. And, when you're talking about the idea of fire and that being a primal fear, people are operating in that fight or flight or that fear mode where they're moving away from the things that are uncomfortable or out of their comfort zone. And the idea of like, what is it in one's life that is that fire that feels dangerous, but when you step into it, and actually begin to play with it, dance with it. So, uh, as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband, like dancing with that fire, that fear, and actually feeling joy, that's a huge connection point that I don't think many people make a lot of times. It's like fear is bad, and also, we talked about how one of the 5 challenges is writing your obituary. So that was a big thing for me as well, starting out in this journey, understanding that life is finite. So the work that you do in the world gets people connected with that. Like, hey, this is a dangerous thing. It's very safe, but very possibly unsafe, you know? So there's a perceived danger in it of death, possibly playing with fire or playing with electricity, or dancing with electricity. So I love the connection between the metaphysical and physical components of it. And then also the study that Stephen Kotler, Jamie Willen's work, I resonate with as well, as far as with flow states and, challenge yourself, 4% more than what you're comfortable with, getting to that flow state. But in order to do that, you got to put a little bit of pressure on yourself, in order to optimize your human performance. And with people in a state of fight or flight or, burnout and all these other things, they're pulling away from that stuff when you can build up that resilience, which is absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah. And what you just said is actually a really great point, that if you're in a wounded state, you don't wanna push yourself. If you're sick, you don't wanna take a cold shower. You wanna rest and allow your body to rejuvenate. But once you're strong, pushing yourself is the only way you get stronger, and then you're more resilient and get sick less often. So it's kind of this like finding the paradox of like, okay, pushing yourself is good, pushing yourself is bad. How are both of those statements true? Well, it's the context, right? Under these circumstances, it's vital to push yourself on a regular basis. And if you're not doing that, then you're not realizing your full potential. But where over here, that is, where you push yourself and maybe out of insecurity, you get injured or something. And then you're like, oh, now I can't work out, or and you kind of have to climb it back up the hill again. So it's like there's this fine line and this beautiful dance we get to find with, oh, where is pushing myself, good and healthy.
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure in your journey too, maybe we could dive into a little bit of the dark nights of the soul. I've been through it myself, all sorts of different challenges to pursue a passion like this. And when you're in school or growing up, it's like, hey, get a good job and do something that's going to pay the bills and this and that we're taught. I'm sure when your parents or people around you said you're going to go pursue something like this, you might have gotten questioned or there might have been some struggles along the way. I sure have experienced those in my pursuit as well. Leveraging adventure to unleash potential, which is, you know, everybody is understands it. So let's go dive a little bit deeper into that whole the journey of some of the biggest challenges you overcome.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I'll say that, the really big challenge that I overcame early that allowed me to kind of move into any of this, I think, was simply the experience of feeling totally without love when I was young. And I just had this phase in my life where all I remember of what my parents and my peers were feeding back to me is criticism. And so I just went through this really strong dark night of the soul when I was pretty young, late middle school, high school. And it's not uncommon. Mine was very dark. And I considered, suicide and doing all the terrible things, and I was just living in a very, very dark place. And I'm very, very grateful that I did make it through that phase in my life. And I think that that gave me a profound kind of compassion in my life, because now I understand why a lot of wicked people, or people who end up doing wicked things, I understand the desperation out of which that arises. And I don't automatically judge a person who's messed up. Like I think, well, that person probably is in a lot of pain when they did that thing. Now, it really like then birthed my understanding of the difference between judgment and discernment, because we still have to have discernment. If a person, wounded as they are, compassionate, for them as you might be, you might not want to let them in your house or anywhere close to your family or your inner circle or things like that, right? But it doesn't mean you have to hate them. It doesn't mean you have to judge them, or to, because what happens is that the atmosphere of judgment, like, comes to exist when we judge other people. And then when we make a mistake, suddenly all that judgment, all that criticism turns on us, that attitude that we have. And so then we're more driven to denial or rationalization. Oh, no, I didn't do that. Not me. Or, oh, yeah, I did that, but I did that for this very good reason, right? But if you just wipe away judgment and you say, this person is who they are, they're that way for whatever reason they're that way, I have to treat them in the way that allows me to have a good relationship, or not a relationship with them, or whatever. But then when you don't judge them, then you are free of self-judgment as well. So that's one big piece for me. That was a big dark night of the souls when I was young. And then definitely, with the pandemic, a business like mine where we're doing shows for hundreds or thousands of people, suddenly you can't do any shows or do anything for hundreds or thousands of people. They're not gathering. And so that was definitely a very challenging time for me. And, definitely just the whole like number of pivots that I've had to make since then. There's been some challenges, but if anything, I used it, and I'm very grateful for this. I used it to become stronger. I was like, okay, no excuses on, working out every single day, no excuses on meditating every day, no excuses on all these things. And so I just started doing them, and I created a chart for myself, and I was like, I want to do all these practices, and every day I'm going to mark down whether I did them or whether I didn't do them. And then I'm going to make a note. Why didn't I do the things I said I was going to do? What were the things that distracted me or took me away? And so I used that kind of journaling feedback exercise to really drive myself into like a consistent daily practice that now really tunes my state in. So that's another dark night of the soul kind of experience that I feel like, I came through, and it was very, very challenging. And the last thing I'll say is that those are, a little bit of external things. I've also had like where I had to realize things about myself that I didn't like. If I was going to take my business to the next level, if I was going to take my relationship to the next level, I had to realize like I'm the common denominator in these circumstances that are not working out. What is it about me that I have to change? And those are like definitely many dark nights, where you just have to look at this part of yourself where you're like, I would not like to say that I'm that way. And I'm behaving that way. What's behind it? What's the mentality that I have? What's the belief that I have that is causing me to look at things and then to act that way? How can I reshape that belief?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things on that topic is, feeling alone and isolated in the process of, pursuing your dreams, and having those questionings of who you are and your value, right? So those thoughts of suicide and things like that, or what's the point? It comes up in a lot of entrepreneurs and people pursuing their dreams, are up against that when they first take that step and leap of faith, which is huge. And stepping into a different way of being and shining a light on understanding that we've created our reality, and embracing the subconscious behaviors that are creating that. And for me, it was, I've always been a very like caring, compassionate, loving person, right? And I love the word that you use, which is discerning. And in the beginning of my career, I wasn't too discerning. I trusted everybody, right? And unfortunately, I you know put myself in dangerous situations as a result of that. So learning that discernment was a big, huge thing for me in setting boundaries and discerning situations. And I love what you said about the not judgmental. to the situation and seeing through to the truth of, who this person may be underneath all this different pain and the decisions that they're making, uh, is beautiful. And then also the idea of falling in love with those shadow sides of us. So I've done a lot of shadow work, as well, and do shadow work with my clients. And I found out that my shadow was the destroyer, right? So we have actually, people, heritage family members that were like, you know, pretty rough and tumble guys in history, and it's been pretty insane. So it's not that I'm like, am I like an angry person? No. But if somebody messes with my family, will they see a different side of John that they're not never seen? Yes, 100%. And sometimes if you push that piece of you away from you and say, "Oh, that's not me," then that piece of you gets stronger, right? And then there's that anger, resentment, like, um, passive aggressive behavior that happens, for someone, for me, like when you don't address it, right? So for me, when I embrace that side of me and said, "Hey, thank you for protecting me in these situations. I love you. You're safe. Uh, thank you." Then there's that reintegration. So there's parts integration, or when you have your different parts that you push them away, you start to be disintegrated as a person, human being, as a soul. So what you're really talking about is reintegration of all the pieces of you and using them when appropriate, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, even the things that I don't like about myself tend to be things where that same trait in another set of circumstances might actually be valuable. Like, for example, one of the things that I have, I'll just, be transparent. One of the things that I have learned about myself is that I'm so excited about all the ideas that I have that I haven't always made as much space for the people that I'm working with as I might, and honor them and their contribution as much as I might. And, that was a hard lesson because I love people and I want them to feel like I appreciate them and I acknowledge them and I value them. And I do, but I have to show that I do. And I have to learn when to be excited about my own idea and its fulfillment, but maybe not keep talking and go all the way down the road about that. Maybe I just share a bit about it and then make some space. And so that's a thing that I've learned, where the very thing that makes me, like, for example, good on a stage when I'm speaking and I'm just sharing my own ideas, I'm super excited about them, is not as good in another set of circumstances. I just have to learn how to be who I am in a way that works wherever I am.
Yeah. Yeah, showing up in a space with the part of you that's gonna serve the space at the highest level. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I love that. So let's dive into, a little bit of the experience. I imagine it takes a lot of focus in order to do what you do to perform. A lot of staying calm and in control in extreme circumstances and conditions. So I bet you there's some lessons that we can share with those that are listening about, and I use the word, I always say navigating peacefully in the chaos, and not allowing the external circumstances to dictate your internal, triggering fear, frustration, rage, all those different emotions. So, what are some ways that you've learned, in the arts that you do, that are directly applicable to the average everyday person that's getting up, maybe going to a job that they're not happy with, or a toxic corporate environment, or a relationship that they're in that isn't necessarily, that is maybe chaotic. So what's some ways we can help empower those listening, to integrate some of those lessons?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I have different things definitely for a person who's in, the relationship thing and in the, job situation, but I'll speak to the center, which is that no matter what you're dealing with, it's the state of being that you're bringing to the situation which determines how you're going to perform. And so, basically cultivating a consistently positive and centered state is the one thing that I would just recommend to every human being. If you can adopt a ritual or a practice every single morning that you do that puts you into a certain state, then it's going to make your whole life better. And, I think it was Joe Dispenza in one of his videos or whatever, I heard him say, if you knew that by spending, XYZ amount of time every single morning, you could make every single minute of every day that you have better for the rest of your life, wouldn't you do it? Obviously you would do it. If any person logically thinking like, yeah, well, yeah, I would do it. So you must not believe at this moment, if you're not doing a daily meditation or a daily practice, you must not believe that it's actually gonna do that for you. And so what tends to be the like hinge point is people have to have an experience of the benefit that gets them. And then they go, oh yeah, wow. Like I definitely, am feeling like I want to do this every single day. And the sort of trick behind that is that it's like a flywheel, right? So at first it's kind of challenging because you're breaking out of the pattern of not doing it and you're breaking into the pattern of doing it. And so that's why to me, like doing a challenge, like a 30-day challenge or 90-day challenge, even better, these kinds of things can drive a new habit, a new ritual, a new pattern into your life. And then it's easier from that point to anchor it and move on. Another piece is community, because if you have a community around you of people that are doing the thing and working out their difficulties with it or whatever, that definitely helps support. But like I was, sharing specifically, like I have a set of practices I do every single morning. And, one of the, I'll just blaze through this really quickly. The very first thing is to use the moment when you're rising out of sleeping into full waking consciousness to reprogram your subconscious. Because when you're moving from delta, which is the sleep brainwave states, through theta, through alpha into beta, you have more access to your subconscious mind. And so during that period, making your first meditation like living in the place that you are creating through the work that you're doing. What does it feel like when you've already accomplished the thing that you're looking for? How, are the things around you looking and feeling and tasting and smelling? And who are the people who are around it? What's happening is you're actually reprogramming your neurology to look for the kinds of things that lead you there. The reticular activating system is a part of your neurology, part of your brain that selects out of the trillions of pieces of data you're looking at, what it is you actually notice. It's why some people can go into the same room, see the same thing, and give a report afterwards and have a totally different report of what happened. It's the difference between the world, or what we call the objective world, and your world. And what really matters to a person is their world. It's like your world that you're living. That's what matters to you because that's what you're actually experiencing. So reprogramming right in the first moments of the day. Then there's breath work and other kind of visualization, meditation. I just do this sort of practice as I'm waking up, getting out of bed, before hygiene, and then right into my workout. And like so, I each and every single day, and I've hit the flywheel where I love to work out every day because I feel better. I love to meditate because I feel better and I know the benefits. So I just encourage anybody out there who's dealing with whatever kind of problem that you're dealing with. Like the first thing that I teach in Skyfire Academy is how to enter into a state from which you can perform really well doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. There's so much connection to what you're talking about to moving forward in life. And I would encourage people to re-listen through what Michael just said because it's super, super powerful. So let's talk a little bit about your mission, right? And the why behind why this is very important to you. So like looking at the legacy that you're creating and looking back maybe 10 years from now, what have you created in this world?
Mm, mm. That's a really beautiful question, and thank you for asking me to speak on that. I will actually carry the thread from what I was just talking to into this. So, one of the things that we do at the beginning of every night of shows for Skyfire Arts is we repeat, what is the code? Like we're programming our minds with everything that we say and we do. And we want to center in on what is the why of Skyfire Arts? Why are we doing this? And connect with that as a group before we go and all do our individual pieces of creating the thing that's going to have an experience for people, which is absolutely mind-blowing and spectacular. And so we say, we create empowering shows, balancing excellence and fun, respecting everyone as equals, accepting everything as it is, becoming ever more aware with authentic compassion. We connect ourselves and our audience with the infinite power of love. We are Skyfire artists. And so with that, we connect with all the little pieces of like, okay, how are we going about this in such a way that the world that we're looking to create, we're living it now. Like if we're going to live a world like in the future that we've helped to create, we have to be the seed of it in this moment. And so the mission, in its short form, is creating spectacular entertainment that promotes ecological awareness and personal empowerment. And so I'll break down all the pieces or whatnot, right? Spectacular entertainment. We want to create something that is so amazing that people never forget it. And I'll tell you that the feedback we get from our shows when somebody wears a suit that protects them from 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, like over half as hot as the surface of the sun, and like gets up in front of everybody and throws real lightning bolts, which is basically only something that happens in mythology, right? Thor or Zeus or, these different, characters out of antiquity, these gods basically are the only ones that were actually throwing lightning bolts. Well, technology has brought us to that place where we can do it too. And when people see it, it's similar to the effect, like one person actually said they thought they were dreaming and they had to pinch themselves. I equate it to like, as if like we're having this conversation, let's say at a cafe, and I look at my watch, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've got to go. And I float up out of my chair and I fly away. Now, your brain at that moment would have to go, okay, that just happened. Like, I didn't think that that could happen, but I just witnessed it. So what else that I think is impossible is actually possible? What else? Like, and it opens people's minds in this way. So we want to create spectacular entertainment that is not only unforgettable, but it's just mind blowing. Like people have to expand their ideas of possibility after they watch our show, right? And so the spectacular entertainment, though, we want to have a purpose. We want it to have a meaning, not just like blow people's minds and then leave them walking around like stunned, right? We don't want to do that. We want to give them a taste of what I call ecological awareness and personal empowerment. So how do we do that with a show, right? And we do back it up with the academy and teaching people deeper lessons when we have more time. But even during the show, when people are witnessing the show, I want people to have that experience. And so part of the show is that, and I'll get to the vision of the future, in a second, but basically the idea of the show is it is a vision of the future. And that the characters on stage are the guardians of Threa. And if you mix up the letters of the word Earth, you can get Threa. It's an anagram. And so basically those characters are from a parallel dimension, and they are the ones that have come into harmony with nature and technology, which is what we're hoping to do as humans in this phase in our cultural evolution. We really want to see an example, because a lot of people, I think, are having a hard time even thinking, like, how does it look when we make it out of this in a good way? There's a lot of news reports, a lot of things talking about how it might look when it doesn't work out okay. But what is the vision of it working out okay? Like, what does that look like? And so on stage, our characters play these beings with psychic powers who communicate to the audience through the soundtrack. And basically there are these voiceover bits about, I don't want to blow the whole thing by telling the setup or anything, but basically you get to experience these beings and they communicate with you, and they share, like, what do people in harmony with nature and technology think like? How do they feel? How do they move? Like, what is the way of being when people live in harmony? And so that's kind of the representation. So, the vision of the future is one in which everyone is empowered to complete their human energy circuit, do what they love, create value out of what they love, and offer it in such a way that people are happy to pay them for what they offer. And then they are sustained, their lifestyle sustained by playing, essentially, or by creating, doing what they love, right? So that's, Ikigai for all humanity is kind of the future I'm working at. And, when I say ecological awareness, there's actually a couple of threads there. And for people who are not religious or even spiritual or whatever, the reality is that ecology, biology, quantum physics have all established very clearly that everything is connected. Everything is just a form of energy, and it's all interpenetrating in various ways owing to its molecular and chemical makeup and whatnot. But the reality is that everything is a form of energy or otherwise, one form of energy or otherwise. And that essentially we're all connected, interdependent. We think of the air as not us, but how could we live without the air? And then therefore the tree that transforms the air we breathe out into the air we breathe in, like, how are we existing without that tree? Like, so actually, if we really look back 4 billion years, there was a seething ball of magma in space, and then it evolved and evolved and evolved. And now the seething ball of magma looks like this and dances. And then if you go back 14 billion years, like bang, something happened. The universe started, and we are basically what the universe has done to itself. And so ecological awareness to me could be called unity consciousness if you're a spiritual person. It's just our awareness of our connection with everything, because I am aware, and I had a profound experience when I was 19. I had this awakening and I realized, oh, if people just knew that they were connected to everything and felt the bliss of that connection, that experience, they wouldn't need to be told to be good or told that they're going to go to hell if they're going to be bad, if they're bad, whatever, because it just makes sense to be good. Like when you understand that you're connected to everything and everything is you, it's like punching someone else in the face is just like punching yourself in the face. So anyway, that's, ecological awareness is the world in which everybody realizes their connection and acts accordingly. And personal empowerment is where they are not only aware, but they are effective in carrying that out and understanding they are an individual person within this matrix, and they can get their own needs met within that context.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, there's the idea of the quantum physics and knowing that we're all connected, everything's energy, and you know, going back to even the idea of getting up in the morning and visualizing, and picturing that connection. That there's science behind that right now, as far as like that not just being like a woo woo type thing to do that people that do like transformational work or touting, but actually science is now proving those thoughts go into the ether, and the ether and energy reacts, and so all sorts of different things inside of that. So
Yeah, I mean, they used to think that there was no invisible waves of energy that you could use to communicate information. If you told somebody that in the 1900s, like Nikola Tesla did, then they would think you're crazy, like they thought Nikola Tesla was. He predicted the cell phone. He said there will one day be an object that will fit in your pocket that will have all the world's information in it. And they thought he was nuts. But now we take for granted that there are these invisible radio waves that we can use to communicate information. And so if we just take that and say, okay, well, if that was at one time crazy and impossible, and now it's every day, yeah, what about these things where we can like visualize, and how does that mechanism work? We may not know that right now, but we can actually observe its effects and begin to find that, cause or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and imagine another 5-10 years, with everything that's going on with AI and the advancements and technologies. I mean, I wonder what that's going to look like for us, and how we can stay connected to nature and elements in that evolution. So finding that space to go play with fire, to go play with electricity, energy, get in nature and push yourself outside your comfort zone. So I think the idea of keeping all those pieces alive while embracing this new path and these new technologies is a real opportunity for people to discover and reconnect with themselves by asking some really good questions and moving through life in a way that honors their highest alignment and purpose, which I can definitely see you're in that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, some of the people that I've been listening to around AI and everything, because it's not really my wheelhouse or whatever, but I definitely want to stay connected to what's being done and understanding, what's possible. Are Peter Diamandis, Salim Ismail, Mo Gadot, and Imad Mostak. Those are some names that I've been, tracking and following their work and stuff. And fortunately, they have actually been sort of affirming this notion that I already came up with that I felt really good about. But I'm not an expert AI, so I was kind of like, maybe I'm right. But basically, it's the notion that like, you know, thousands of years ago, people figured out that being good just made sense and that it's just better for everybody not lying. And like, there's just so many things about, cooperation, collaboration, all that. It just makes sense. Right. And so my notion was that if AI is super intelligent, right, if AI is way smarter than us, then it should come to that conclusion way faster than, like it's actually, I mean, humans came to it thousands of years ago. And it's just that they keep coming to it in every generation. Certain people understand it, and we're starting to hopefully get the whole crowd of us on board, as we go forward. But that's my understanding is like it just makes sense to be so AI is just going to get that like, oh, humans created me, so they're useful, and they could help, keeping that, and they want my services. Obviously, they want me to help them. Okay, so let me just find a way to create this collaborative relationship between us where they can continue to refine me, I can continue to refine them, and whatever, and I just feel like that's likely to happen. And if some people do create AIs along the way that are just specifically given directions that are malaligned and whatever, I think there's enough people like those guys I just mentioned that are working on AI in the, like open source, like distributed, like we're going to make it good for everybody kind of way that I feel like, and they're not dumb. I'm hoping that they have a robot army that's literally just like, hey, if everybody's chill, then we're chill. Like if nobody's hurting each other, then we stand down. But if somebody starts hurting somebody, then we activate and we stop people from hurting each other. That's about all. You know what I mean? That would be great.
Yeah, yeah, I think we'll get there. Um, having the right people, leaders, leading us in a direction that is going to have that be the outcome versus another reality of outcome. I'm all for it, and whatever we can do to instigate that in the world, all about it. So, um, man, Michael, I really appreciate you jumping on here and being a part of the community, Circus Academy community. And if you guys are listening, Michael is an absolutely amazing human being. Highly recommend you connect with him. He's one of the members inside the academy, so feel free to jump in there to get to know him. Also, Michael, what is the best way for people to reach you to get more information on like Skyfire Academy and Skyfire Arts?
Yeah, thank you so much. So, yeah, skyfireacademy.org is the one you can reach me for, empowerment coaching or keynote speaking, things like that. If you want to, I mean, and the websites point to each other, but if you want to connect with us about doing performances, large scale performances, or even we've even done birthday parties for people who really wanted to make it special, but, basically it's skyfirearts.com. And if you go to any of the, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, all that, it's Skyfire Arts.
Yep. And we've been talking about for a little while getting a group of people together to do that type of experience. So if that's something that you want to do, you want to go play with some electricity and feel the power within you and without, definitely drop, a comment or reach out and let us know and we'll get a group together. So to all my underground warriors out there, this episode has been absolutely amazing. And so if you found value in it, make sure to share it, leave a review, and most importantly, take action and harness your energy, step into your power, and create something extraordinary. So until next time, stay relentless. Take care.